Hi, my name's Amanda Peddle and I'm here to talk a little bit about the products that we sell that can be used to support children and families in terms of understanding their emotional response awareness. So I have written the Tams Journey book series, and this is a series of books that helps explore why the nervous system has evolved as it has, what that looks like in terms of a physical response, and how some of those patterns can be created, but how we can also soothe some of those responses at the same time. And I really wanted this to be child friendly and understood in a way that is easily accessible for people. So that was where the idea for a set of storybooks came from. So this is our first book, Tams Journey, The Beginning. And this first book introduces children and young people to an understanding of how their sensory response creates a response in the body, and that ties into our fight, flight and freeze response. And it's a lovely story about a little boy called Tam. Tam stands for the amazing me, so it really does allow us all to have an individual journey through a story. And the central character is a sloth called Hetty. So this is our Hetty, and these can also be purchased to go with the book. So it makes a nice sensory thing for children to hold while they're working with the story at the same time. And we do have quite a few sets in schools where children will hold the sloth as a calming strategy while staff read through bits of the books. So the next book is called The Middle. And I bet you can't guess what the next one's called. And this really ties into understanding how our body responds to the brain's messages that it takes from the senses, and how that can show up as a feel in the body. So we have all sorts of responses to this, and in our heart and our lungs and our stomach. And so this follows Tam continuing his journey. He goes out to meet Hetty, and she introduces him to some of these ideas. And we have these wonderful plushies that we use to go alongside. So they're really tactile. And actually, sometimes if children can't necessarily explain a physical sensation, they can point to a tummy. They can say that they feel a strange sensation. They can say that maybe they feel uncomfortable in their chest area, or uncomfortable in their lung area, or that their breathing's changed. So these are really good, especially for children who struggle with language and communication. So they can be a really useful tool to go alongside the learning and understanding. And if you notice, all of the writing on our books is on a blue background. We actually worked with a kilometrist who told us that this shade of blue is one of the more popular coloured overlays. So children with any visual processing issues can also access the reading a little bit more easily. So the third book really looks at Tam going back to Hetty for some more reassurance. And then this time she teaches him how the neurons pass messages from the brain to the body, and then how these three areas come to life to create that response. But also she starts to introduce the idea of being able to choose things that distract that busyness. So some of the things that soothe us, and we particularly don't use some of the language that is attributed for this. So we don't necessarily use words like trauma, anxiety, mindfulness. We've created a story that allows these things to come into play without particularly naming it. Sometimes that can be a little bit more overwhelming for a child, and sometimes they're not ready for that language, and we shouldn't have to be using it if they're not ready. So additionally, we have the little neuron plushie, and in the book they're called the Rons, because I worked with a child once who couldn't say neuron, so we called them the Rons, and now all the children I work with now call them the Rons. And of course, because they're small children, sometimes that crosses into talking about the runs and the rons. So that's always a little bit of a fun thing. So the next book in our series, Tams Journey Connections, is moves on to how we understand what a safe and connected space can provide for us, but also how the body creates that in the first place. So with the understanding of what self-regulation could look like, we don't use that only with children. We then start to understand that sometimes people can make us feel a little bit uncomfortable. So it explores really how the brain processes that information, and it links into our book number 5, which will be around Hetty having a baby, which also starts to tie in the understanding of how this process starts in the womb. But the main focus of this book, so it's about understanding that the relationship is such an important space, and the relationship we have with our children and families is a vital space, and it is a nice contained space. So we have a new character called Terry, and Terry is a toucan, and he's standing in for Hetty while she's on maternity leave. And we chose the toucan because two can regulate better than one.